Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you are doing well. Today we will start another new chapter from history, and the name of the chapter is The Revolt of 1857, which is considered to be one of the most important events in the history of India. In this chapter, we will talk about the rebellion in the army and the spread of the movement. We will also talk about how the revolt of 1857 originated and spread to different parts of the country. And we will also find out about the changes in the colonial rule after 1857. So let's start. But before we start our discussion on the revolt of 1857, let us first find out the meaning of revolt or a rebellion. A revolt is a sudden, violent, and bloody outburst of the people's anger. It could be well planned, bloodless, or long drawn. It is only possible when large number of people support it. Now, let's come back to our topic, that is Revolt of 1857. The year 1857 witnessed a major armed revolts against the British in parts of central and northern India, which nearly brought down the British rule in North India. The revolt witnessed large-scale violence which was instigated by both sides. The rebels also massacred the white civilians. The revolt ended the rule of the East India Company and the administration of India was taken over by the British Crown. Many causes lead to the revolt of 1857, such as social and economic, political, military, etc. Let's discuss these causes one by one. Social and economic causes. Some of the social and economic causes that lead to the revolt of 1857 were: point number 1, change in the pattern of trade and commerce. The English East India Company in their initial days brought their ware from the local market so the artisans benefited. But in the 18th century, the pattern of trade underwent a drastic change. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution in England, many new industries came up which started manufacturing on a large scale. This product needed new markets for the goods to be sold. So, India was reduced to a raw material producing country. Raw material from India was exported and the goods which were made out of these materials were sold back in India. So the British traders made enormous profit in this two-way trade, all at the expense of the Indians. Point number 2, discontent among the people. The estates of many landlords were taken over by the East India Company when the native provinces came under the company's dominion. The degenerating condition of the nobles and the landlords led to the loss of patronage of local artisans and craftsmen. Soldiers who were disbanded found themselves with no source of income. So, there was a lot of discontent. Point number 3, activities of Christian missionaries. When the government established churches and appointed chaplains for it at government expenses, the people grew weary. They took it to be a move to convert them to Christianity under the new regime. Point number 4, passing of new laws. The administrators, encouraged by the situation, started constituting laws against some common social practices. Some of the laws passed were the Act Bending of the Sati and the Widow Remarriage Act. This was resented by the Indians. Now, political causes. Some of the political causes were: point number 1, Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse. According to the doctrine of lapse, the rulers or the native princes could not appoint their adopted sons to their throne. This was opposed by Nana Sahib, the adopted son of Peshwa Baji Rao II. Since he was not recognized as the legal heir, he was deprived of the pension his father had been getting. Rani Lakshmibai was also prevented from putting her adopted son on the throne. The house of the Mughals was humbled when it was announced that the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would not be allowed to use their imperial titles, and furthermore, they would not be allowed to use the historic Red Fort as their palace. Point number 2, exposure of the myth of British invincibility. The British had suffered very heavy losses in the First Afghan War and the Crimean War. They also faced losses while quelling the rebellion of the Santhal tribes of Bihar and Orissa. These losses were not just in terms of resources and might, but more significantly, it showed vulnerability of the British. Now, military causes. The native soldiers were ill-treated at the hands of the East India Company. They were also deprived of the Foreign Service Allowance or the bhata, which was much resented. With the coming of the General Service Enlistment Act, soldiers enlisted in the company had to serve wherever they were ordered to go. As the British frontiers were extending, it meant that they had to serve in alien lands. Most of the travel involves sea voyage, which was against their customary practice. Immediate goals of the revolt of 1857. The British introduced the Enfield rifles. These rifles had cartridges which were removed to be greased with animal fat. The cover of these cartridges had to be bitten off by teeth before being loaded. It was believed that the fat of animals which hurt the religious sentiments of the Indians was used for this purpose. This was offensive both to the Hindu and Muslims, sepoys, and they refused to touch these cartridges. Events of the revolt. On 9 May 1857, sepoys in Meerut refused to use the Enfield rifle. They were imprisoned for this defiance. The next day, the soldiers overtook the prison and released their imprisoned colleague. On the morning of 11th May 1857, a band of sepoys from Meerut set the toll house on fire and marched to Red Fort. When they reached Delhi, they persuaded Bahadur Shah Zafar to join them. He was proclaimed the Shahanshah-e-Hindustan. The revolt at Meerut was the precursor to a widespread mutiny by sepoys and the rebellion that engulfed almost all of North India as well as Central and Western India. Almost half of the company's sepoy opted out of their loyalty to their regiments. Even before the 11th May incident, there were rumblings of resentment in the various cantonments. The 19th Native Infantry at the Berhampur was disbanded when they refused to use the newly introduced Enfield rifle. A sepoy of 34th Native Infantry, Mangal Pandey, had fired at Sergeant Major of the regiment. He was executed and the regiment had been disbanded. On 8 June 1857, a British relief force defeated an army of mutineers at Badli Sari and took up a position on the famous ridge overlooking the city of Delhi. They were besieged by the mutineers when they made a daring attempt to intercept their train. The arrival of more British reinforcements under John Nicholson, commander of the relief force, finally led to the defeat of the mutineers. After 6 days of street fighting, Delhi was recaptured. This action was the turning point in the campaign and is known as the Siege of Delhi. Bahadur Shah was captured and exiled to Burma, now Rangoon. Now let's see how the rebellion spread at different parts of the country. At Kanpur, Nana Saheb, the adopted son of the last Peshwa Baji Rao, led the revolt. Nana Saheb had a grudge against the British since he had been denied the family title and had also been banished from Pune. Begum Hazrat Mahal led the revolt in Lucknow. Her son, Burgess Kadra, was proclaimed the Nawab. In Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai joined the rebel sepoys and fought the British along with Tantia Top, the general of Nana Saheb. Many small rulers and chieftains also supported the move to get the Mughal emperor on the throne. These rulers and chieftains controlled different territories on behalf of the Mughal ruler. Threatened by the expansion of the British rule, they wanted the Mughal ruler back on the throne. And Bahadur Shah Zafar's decision to bless the rebellion changed the entire situation dramatically. Many new leaders came up. In Delhi, a large number of Ghazis or religious warriors came together to wipe out the white people. Bakht Khan, a soldier from Bareilly, took charge of a large force of fighters who came to Delhi. He became a key military leader of the rebellion. In Bihar, an old zamindar, Conwar Singh, joined the rebel sepoys and battled with the British for many months. leaders and fighters from across the land joined the fight. After the British were routed from Delhi, there was no uprising for almost a week. Then a spurt of mutinies began. Regiment after regiment joined the mutiny and took off to join other troops at nodal points like Delhi, Kanpur, and Lucknow. The people of the towns and villages also rose up in rebellion and railed around local leaders, zamindars, and chiefs who were prepared to establish their authority and fight the British. The British were greatly outnumbered by the rebel force. They were defeated in a number of battles. This convinced the people that the rule of the British had collapsed for good and gave them the confidence to join the rebellion. Now, let's see how the company crushed the revolt. The company decided to repress the revolt with all its might. It brought reinforcement from England, passed new laws so that the rebel could be convinced with ease, and then moved into the storm centers of the revolt. Delhi was recaptured from the rebel force in September 1857. The last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar was tried in court and sentenced to life imprisonment. His sons were shot dead before his eyes. He and his wife Begum Zinat Mahal were exiled to Rangoon in October 1858. Bahadur Shah Zafar died in the Rangoon jail in November 1862. The recapture of power, however, did not mean that the rebellion died down after that. People continued to resist and battle the British. The British had to fight for 2 years to suppress the massive force of popular rebellion. Lucknow was taken in March 1858. Rani Lakshmibai was defeated and killed in June 1858. Tantia Top escaped to the jungle of central India and continued to fight a guerrilla war with the support of many tribal and peasant leaders. He was captured, tried, and killed in April 1859. Now let's see what were the effects of the revolt. The British Parliament passed a new act in 1858 and transferred the powers of the East India Company to the British Crown in order to ensure a more responsible management of the Indian affairs. All ruling chiefs of the country were assured that their territory would never be annexed in future. They were allowed to pass on their kingdoms to their heirs, including adopted sons. However, they were made to acknowledge the British Queen as their sovereign paramount. Thus, the Indian rulers were to hold their kingdoms as subordinate of the British Crown. It was decided that the proportion of Indian soldiers in the army would be reduced and the number of European soldiers would be increased. It was also decided that instead of recruiting soldiers from Awadh, Bihar, Central India, and South India, more soldiers would be recruited from among the Gorkhas, Sikh, and the Pathans. The British decided to respect the customary religious and social practices of the people in India. Policies were made to protect landlords and zamindars and gave them security of rights over their land. So, with this, we come to the end of this chapter and also the end of this video. See you soon with another new chapter. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.